welcome everyone to this talk. Hope you're enjoying the conference, having a good time. Our next speaker is Cameron Bonime, and he's going to talk about the Initiative for Martian Hemp Industrialization, I.M.H.I. Take it away, Cameron.
Howdy, everyone. I hope you're having a great convention so far. This is my first one, so I just want to say I'm honored to be here and thankful you guys are as well. I'll be speaking about the Initiative for Martian Hemp Industrialization. My abstract is utilizing the versatility of cannabis, hemp, space exploration has the potential to yield innovations across industries on Earth, Mars, between and beyond. Now, before I start talking about hemp's potential in space exploration, I'm kind of going to break this presentation to what is hemp, the physiology of hemp, its past history, where hemp is at now, and then I'll kind of get into its future uses both on Earth and in space. So hemp and cannabis, what's the difference? Hemp is essentially varieties of cannabis bred for industrial utilization compared to cannabis, which is really grown more times often than not for the psychoactive compound found in the resin trichomes on the flower. So like I said, hemp are varieties bred for industrial uses, usually fiber, hurd, and seed yields. And the difference legally is usually about either 0.3% THC, which is the psychoactive compound in cannabis, and in some states 1%. So while cannabis is federally illegal, industrial hemp varieties of cannabis are federally legal, legalized in 2018 in the Farm Bill. And since then, every state here in America has established a hemp program where farmers could apply for hemp cultivation licenses to start making fiber, hurd, seed, and variations of what those could be utilized for. This is an example of an industrial hemp variety. This plant is 24 feet tall and was submitted for the Guinness World Record. And you'll kind of see what it gets separated into. This is the anatomy of a hemp plant. You have the inner hurd, which is this middle section, which can be processed in a whole bunch of ways, such as like shredded up or micronized and turned into all sorts of different things, such as plastic biocomposites, structural hemp adobe. You could press it into hemp wood. I'll show some examples of that. Yeah, you could process it into biofuel. You could compost it. It makes great insulation, and there's a whole bunch of other varieties I'll get into as well. The outer fibers can be utilized for textiles, woven into clothes or turned into paper. And they also could share applications of the hurd as well, such as being turned into hemp wood. Cannabis are psychoactive varieties legally, I guess, because once again, hemp is really more of just a legal term. It's a legal variation. It's industrial varieties of the cannabis plant with less than 0.3 to 1% THC, which is the psychoactive compound found in cannabis plants. These cannabis plants are usually grown, once again, for the resins within the trichomes on the flower. They could be extracted, or you could just use the flower for medical and recreational purposes, which in America, it's allowed to be medical in every state. Some states have programs, some don't. More have than don't. It's recreational in some places. Canada, it's completely legal. But most of the rest of the world is legal. But industrial hemp is legal, I think, in more places than not. Legal in around Europe, legal in Canada, legal in America, used in China, never was legalized there. So the properties of the cannabis plant are the cannabinoids, which are chemicals found in the cannabis plant, most common being THC, CBD, CBN, CBG, but realistically, there are dozens to hundreds of these cannabinoids still being researched. The term cannabinoid was coined because these compounds were found while studying the cannabis plant. The psychoactive cannabinoid that determines if a cannabis crop is legally hemp or recreational/medical cannabis is once again THC, tetrahydrocannabinol. And minor cannabinoids like CBD, CBG, CBN have medical properties and are non-psychoactive. So minor cannabinoids like CBD can be used all over America, all over parts of the world. It's different than high potency THC. And these products can be turned into capsules, patches, creams, drink and food additives. This is the CBD that you could find at your local grocery store or anything like that. The way these compounds interact with us is through our endocannabinoid system. Similarly to cannabinoids, the system was named after the cannabis plant because it was discovered while looking for the target of THC within the body. The endocannabinoid system is a system of receptors found all throughout our body, mainly in our central nervous system and immune system. And further research found that uh, a whole bunch of animals have an endocannabinoid system. It's thought to have evolved over 600 million years ago, and it's found in mammals, fish, birds, reptiles, invertebrates, but notably not insects, which is interesting. Cannabis is thought to be one of the oldest domesticated plants, originating in China, and has been cultivated throughout history for its fibers, food, flower, and utilized for industrial purposes. Uh, the ancient history is so interesting. Carl Sagan even said it'd be really interesting if human history, the cultivation of marijuana, led generally to the invention of agriculture and thereby to civilization. It helped us in the foundation of civilizations all throughout history, and it's kind of what the initiative Martian Hemp Industrialization is about. It helping us in the future. In kind of American colonial history, founding fathers such as George Washington and Jefferson both grew hemp. It was a staple resource crop all throughout colonial America, used in Navy ships, to ropes, clothes, lamp fuel, paper, etc., and was used all throughout the 17th, 18th, and 19th century. And before it was outlawed in last century. It was being used for a while, but post outlaw, it was still utilized in World War II. The government released a video called Hemp for Victory, which I encourage all of you to go watch. It's really just advocating how hemp can be utilized for all sorts of everyday goods to support the war effort. Also, last century, Ford even did some crazy experiments developing cars made out of partly biocomposites from hemp, and the engine ran on hemp biofuel, hemp ethanol, which could be processed from hemp biomass. The cellulose within the biomass can be fermented and then distilled into ethanol. Interestingly enough, in the 70s, it was categorized as Schedule 1 drug. Just for reference, fentanyl is a Schedule 2 drug, so that's today. Cannabis is still considered more dangerous and with less medical use than fentanyl. Yet in 1992, the endocannabinoid system was discovered. So interesting timeline. Within this century, cannabis is still illegal, but hemp was legalized for industrial purpose here, at least in America. All 50 states in the last 3 years have gone on to develop hemp programs where they could apply for licensing. The industry now employs over 300,000 people, and that's just legally employees. I'm sure this plant helps a lot of people make money to feed their families. In wake of legalization, there's been a bunch of investment in R&D from every aspect of utilizing this plant, both from universities and private companies alike. And it's a whole new world. Hemp's already been to space, which is beyond interesting. I learned this year. It's been sent twice by different companies, cannabis companies partnering up with like CubeSat companies to send both seeds and tissue cultures to the International Space Station. They weren't cultivated in space. They were sent there and then brought back to Earth to be cultivated to study like gene expression and how maybe mutations on how microgravity affected them. But it does set precedent for the future of astro plant botany and getting hemp involved. I believe both missions were actually launched last year, kind of around March. Hemp companies Telehealth and Navi Market partnered with Space Tango to study the effect of microgravity on cannabinoid development and effectiveness. I got to meet Annie Rouse, who is the founder of Navi Market, who helped in this mission. And she said the seeds, when they got back, they germinated just fine. And then when I asked for any more information, she said that's classified. So looking forward to hearing more about research done in low Earth orbit and hemp. Another company sent tissue cultures Front Range Bioscience, and they were partnered with the University Boulder, Colorado, and some other awesome companies, Space Oats USA, Bioserve Space Technologies, and we're also studying it for microgravity. What's interesting about tissue cultures is to propagate hemp, you could take literal cells of the plant and through tissue culture, get them to grow. And then once they grow, take tissues from them or take clones, just trimmings, and they will root. So from a couple cells of a plant, you could realistically fill a greenhouse. So from low Earth orbit to the moon, a sustainable human presence on the moon is going to yield scientific discoveries within several industries. And I call it the Initiative for Martian Hemp Industrialization because I believe Mars will be the first truly independent civilization away from Earth. The moon will always kind of have just inherently that relationship and compared to the sovereignty of Mars, millions of light years or miles away. And it's technology developed on the moon, as the moon will serve as an analog environment to test, prove, and improve technologies and efficiency of technologies across industries that will set the foundation for Mars. And I believe science done on Mars will set the foundation pretty much for exploration across the solar system and even to other solar systems. On the moon, we'll be able to study the effects of microgravity has on hemp cultivation, manufacturing, processing, and all other aspects of utilization, and see how the plant can be of service to space industries. I don't believe it's one end all be all, need to be used for everything. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other plants and biosynthesis processes that could do a lot of the same things hemp can do, but wherever hemp can fit in and create a more sustainable supply chain or society, I think we should utilize it. And all that research done in space will benefit hemp here on Earth. So like I said, technologies and techniques developed on the moon will set the foundation for civilizations on Mars. And I believe technologies and techniques developed on Mars will set the foundation for civilizations throughout the galaxy. Mars is going to require innovation in every sector of society to get there. And I definitely believe that's true with agriculture and food productions. I don't see us depending on a planetary supply chain of really any resource in the long run. If Mars can be independent and sustainably produce materials needed for society, that would be almost necessary. So we talked about some of the materials that come from hemp. These are how they're being processed and used on Earth and how they could potentially be used in space. I believe the real component to the Initiative for Martian Hemp Industrialization, on top of astronauts getting to utilize hemp for paper, plastic, clothing, food, oil, in industries such as the hemp industry, which has spent essentially a century of prohibition and siphoning innovation, will see their technology innovated very fast and benefit industries here on Earth. So fiber can be used, the fibers of the hemp plant can be used for 100% ropes, textiles, and seed mats like this. I actually worked on a hydroponic farm where we were using hemp mats to grow microgreens and then composting them. It was pretty awesome. An example of hemp fibers being used on Navy ships, I believe it's thought that 60,000 pounds were used on the USS Constitution in the ropes and in the sails, which is one of our America's first Navy ships. The fibers can be used in blends for clothing, 3D printing filament, plastic biocomposites, which can be either structural or just for household materials like forks or really anything. And they could be both compostable and recyclable depending on the blend. And hemp is a value where it can be such. And once again, it's not about hemp being an end all be all. It's about utilizing where it's appropriate. For example, in clothes, hemp cultivation requires less water than cotton. So even just using a blend between hemp and cotton creates more sustaining systems, at least here on Earth, potentially in space. And if in space, will only increase the capabilities here on Earth. Hemp plastic can be turned into biocomposites for structural materials, or hemp hurd can be pressed into materials for flooring or interior furniture, such as these cabinets, or you can do it for finish. It's a interesting material. At least here on Earth, could be used pretty much. It's getting to the point where you could build an entire house out of it. And interesting about it is it's a carbon negative building material, which I believe once again, if innovated in space exploration, that technology will help us here on Earth, especially in our fight against climate change. Quote about agriculture here. Let us not forget that the cultivation of the earth is the most important labor of man. When tillage begins, other arts will follow. The farmers, therefore, are the founders of civilization. Daniel Webster. I believe agriculture will be of immense importance to societies anywhere, especially on the moon or Mars. Food production will be a, let's see, we got a little out of order. Main priority. Biochar is a soil amendment. This is used in sustainable agriculture. Hemp is not the only source of biochar. You can pretty much make it from any organic materials, but utilizing biochar in agriculture in space, increasing efficiency, once again, I believe kind of streamlines its use here on Earth. Biochar is created when organic biomass processed through pyrolysis, which is just a type of way to burn it, I believe, without exposing the oxygen or letting the oxygen escape, so it becomes a stable carbon molecule. Biochar reduces the need for chemical fertilizers, especially when introduced to crop rotation, which is another permaculture technique. And similar to hemp construction materials, is another carbon sequestration industry where, if innovated in space, can be optimized to fight climate change on Earth. This is the ability of a lot of plants, phytoremediation, but cannabis especially. Phytoremediation is the ability of plants to sequester soil contaminants into its biomass throughout growth, remediating the soil. For example, hemp was brought to Chernobyl, the radioactive site, and it reduced soil toxicity, extracted lead, nickel, and other heavy metals. And when not used to extract heavy metals, it does the same thing with nutrients, or it'll pull nutrients deep from out the ground, bring it to the topsoil, and kind of remediate the soil and create a more sustainable nutrient cycle in your soil, reducing the need for fertilizers. And when you use this in conjunction with compost and crop rotation and other permaculture methods, you just get agriculture with less inputs, which is less money, less resources on Earth or Mars. Not only can hemp facilitate the growth of edible crops through phytoremediation, hemp itself is considered a superfood. Hemp seeds are a complete protein that contain 20 amino acids, including all 9 amino acids our body cannot produce on its own. It contains healthy fatty acids like omega-3 and omega-6, and can be utilized in a bunch of ways in our diets, such as seeds can be ground up for grains, make protein powder, breads, oils, dairy substitutes, or even just used raw. You can eat the seeds, put them in smoothies, put them in your salad, and get their nutrition. And the seeds have no psychoactive effects, so you're not gonna experience anything like that. The acids, proteins, fibers, minerals, and nutrients found in hemp that benefit humans also benefit animals. And when you compare it to what animals are commonly fed, like corn, for example, it's way more beneficial. And the Swedish University of Agriculture Sciences found adding hemp into the diet of dairy cows resulted in increased nutritional value in the milk. We are what we eat, and what we eat is what we feed it. So be mindful of that. And similar studies found hemp seed oil enriched hen eggs as well. On top of agriculture that needs less input, if your animals are healthier, you have to give them less steroids, antibiotics. If you're feeding them healthier, you will be healthier, which leads to less sickness, which leads to less, sickness and bad health, declines cognitive functions, motor functions. It's not good, and has a bunch of residual negative effects that healthy diet could prevent, and hemp help be a part of. Hemp seeds can turn into grain, and the fiber and protein in the hemp will be found an all-purpose flour, so it's a healthier bread substitute. The oil is removed from the seeds and then they're grinded up into flour. And like I said, can be used for pretty much all bread substitutes while still being healthy for you. It's gluten-free, and there's certain genetic varieties of hemp that are cultivated specifically for seed production and grain production. Those seeds can be blended with water to produce a hemp milk substitute, which could be cooked where you can make spreads or ice cream or other dairy products while it's still being healthy. And once again, it's not about hemp being the end all be all. I believe you mix hemp with other substitutes or even just regular milk for maximum nutrients. It's the best. It's not all about using hemp. It's about being healthy, and where hemp could help us, we should let it. Biofuel biomass of the hemp plant, harvested for its cellulose, like I said, fermented and then distilled to produce ethanol for biofuel. Hemp seeds have I think you could use the biomass as well. Yeah, you can use all the biomass, not just the seeds, which is awesome. The oil produced from the biomass of hemp has a 90% conversion rate into biodiesel, which is a high efficiency of conversion. Once again, Ford wanted cars to utilize hemp biodiesel as fuel and hemp biocomposites for structural and interior design. Imagine where we'd be at. This technology is definitely still its infancy. There's only a few papers out about it, but it's super interesting. It's carbon nanosheets from hemp. Dr. David Mitlin dropped a report in an interview with BBC about making, here's the name of the report, interconnected carbon nanosheets derived from hemp for ultra-fast supercapacitors with high energy, where they essentially cooked them, is what the term they used, into carbon nanosheets, and they made supercapacitors from them. We're making graphene-like materials for 1,000th the price, and we're doing it for waste. And the study suggests hemp is on par with or better than commercial graphene-based devices. There's no commercial hemp carbon nanosheets or hemp batteries or anything like that. Definitely interesting, and that's kind of why, once again, if we apply this technology to space exploration, if someone, whether it's a company or government, saw potential in this, they could invest in the R&D without necessarily direct profit incentive like a commercial company, and make technology that's beneficial for us. Hemp cannabis, medical cannabis, you've heard of it. It's not just THC. There's other cannabinoids as well. Like I said, there's thought to be hundreds of cannabinoids in the cannabis plant, some psychoactive, some not. And a whole bunch of research going. Once again, when you think about it, it's a really new industry. It's like I said, this endocannabinoid system that processes the chemicals found in cannabis was only discovered 30 years ago. Hemp was legalized for industrial cultivation only 3 years ago. So whole lot of research to be done on really every aspect of this plant. Medicinal properties of phytocannabinoids are not only being discovered generally, but research has led to specific medicinal attributes being correlated with respective cannabinoids. So before it was just kind of, they didn't know what cannabinoid was doing what, but as research is done, they could correlate effects with cannabinoids. Cannabinoids are just chemicals found in cannabis plant. And once again, cannabinoids are named that way because they were found while researching the cannabis plant. These can be utilized into all sorts of products, capsules, sublinguals, transdermal patches, creams, aeroceuticals, which are like air diffusers, food and drink additives, etc., and can treat both physical and mental problems such as inflammation, seizures, depression, anxiety, addiction, insomnia. We're going to kind of compare minor cannabinoids versus THC. This definitely has a play on the legality aspect. THC is the psychoactive cannabinoid. It's also the dominant cannabinoid found in the plant, but there are varieties bred specifically for medicinal values, the same way there are varieties bred specifically for industrial applications. CBD, Maybe you've tried CBD from your local gas station. Be wary. The industry is massively saturated. You know, everyone's making products, different varieties of quality. It's usually low quality, but when used in medicinal studies at the acquired potencies, there's definitely uh, medicinal values. Studies have found when consuming CBD can help treat anxiety, PTSD, schizophrenia, addiction, depression, seizures, internal inflammation or inflammation. Oops, spelled that wrong. Insomnia, and further research is still being conducted around the world. Like I said, systems discovered that process these chemicals were only discovered 30 years ago, and science has been limited. Now you could do minor cannabinoid science because hemp was legalized 3 years ago, but 15 years ago it wasn't that simple just to do R&D on these chemicals. And there's potential for like biosynthesis producing these chemicals. They don't need to come from the cannabis plant. And once again, they could be applied, they could be consumed or applied topically through creams or transdermal patches, and they could treat chronic pain, skin inflammation, and can be of value to animals as well as humans. THC has similar medical benefits as CBD, but is also psychoactive. This psychoactive property is central to its legality, but definitely potent concentrates offer heavy pain relief. And for people such as like cancer patients, they really only want the potent concentrates. That's what helps them. That's the medical value is the psychoactive effect. THC can be isolated. All cannabinoids can. So you could focus and you could get just CBD or just THC or just CBN or just CBG, blend them, put them at different ratios for target effects. In lieu of science saying like specific cannabinoids have specific medical attributes, we could formulate cannabinoids at different ratios for specific elements on Earth or on Mars.
Just a reminder, you have 3 minutes left.
Heard that. I'm on last 3 slides. Let's do it real quick. This begs the question: recreational use of really anything in future societies in this end of this century and the next century. Are they going to have alcohol? Are they going to have tobacco? Are they going to have cannabis? I don't think any of those should be allowed on the ISS, and they aren't for obvious reasons. But is this going to be reality for future generations? Is that even feasible to ban these substances? It's not feasible really here on this planet. You can look at the data. What should they have? Something like alcohol or something like cannabis? You know, I don't really know. I don't know if any of these should be used, but once again, is that feasible? We know mental health and morale will be critical to the success of deep space missions and the future civilizations that depend on those missions. It may make sense to utilize medicinal herbs and flowers, which offer a unique source of medicine because they can be propagated from seeds or cells. And once again, not all cannabinoids with medicinal benefits are psychoactive. So in conclusion, cannabis can be used as a source to produce nutritious food, textiles, clothing, paper, plastic, interior design, biofuel, medicine, animal feed, seed mats, construction materials, etc., and has become an interest of R&D across institutions and private companies alike. Cannabis prohibition has induced an innovation deficit within the industry. Utilizing cannabis in space exploration would catalyze rapid innovation beneficial to life on Earth. And that's really the main focus. Astronauts get a sustainable source of paper, plastic, clothing, food, oil, and an industry which has had innovation stifled for nearly a century gets to have rapid innovation catalyzed through space exploration, as that's kind of the nature of the industry. Cannabis is a versatile resource crop with applications across industries on Earth, Mars, between and beyond. And with that, that is the end of my presentation. I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity and everyone sharing their time with me. And thank you.
Yeah. We have a question for you here. So he says, it seems to have a small amount of pests. Even a damaged plant has uses versus a plant you're only harvesting for fruit body, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The biomass doesn't really matter if it has damage. It's just the biomass, whether it's been bitter or not, can be fermented and turned into ethanol. Another interesting thing about industrial hemp, doesn't even really need fertilizer or to be cultivated. You can, and on top of fertilizer, no pesticides. Like bugs don't really even have an interest in messing with hemp too much, unless so kind of just on and the clothes have an antimicrobial feature. So there's definitely an aspect of sanitation from even in cultivation to post-processing that hemp can be of value. And yeah, every aspect of the plant, different qualities, but yes.
Okay, well, our time is up now. And thanks, Cameron, for presenting.
No doubt. I have a website, I.M.H.I.space. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out. The initiative for Martian Hemp Industrialization, I.M.H.I.space. Appreciate y'all. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.